All right, so we have the floor plans done. We have the elevations done. The next one that we're going to do is the section. And the section is going to be pretty much the same thing as the floor plan, except that instead of a horizontal cut, we're going to be doing a vertical cut. Okay, so instead of cutting the building this way from left to right, we're cutting the building from top to bottom, right? And so we'll be able to see the kind of interior volumes of our design. So we're going to go ahead and let's see, let's go into our clipping plane. We're going to go ahead and create a new layer, call this CP section. I'm going to call it CP section 1, just in case if you ever want to create a second section, you go section 1, section 2, and so on. Right? Let's go ahead and put this in the clipping plane. Okay. At this point, I'm done with this floor plan. So I will disable clipping plane. Okay. I'll even turn them off so that they don't show up. And then we'll go ahead and oops, don't turn that off. We'll go ahead and create a vertical clipping plane. So we'll type in clipping plane. Okay. And I should be able to, let me try this. We probably have to hit vertical up here, but let's see if we can just, if it'll nope, it won't recognize the surface. So let's escape that clipping plane. We're going to go ahead and click on vertical because we want a vertical rectangle. And I'll just go from there, click, click, and click. Okay, so it's a 3-click process to create a vertical rectangle. And here's my clipping plane. So I can go ahead and move this however I want to, wherever I want to generate, the drawings that I want to generate. Now you should note that we can, if we wanted to, copy clipping planes. Okay. And we could even rotate the clipping planes. So sometimes, and then kind of move them in. So we can, do, if we wanted to take a look at a building from this perspective, we could also do them. Let's do something like that. Right, if we wanted to get an angle. So this becomes really interesting. These clipping planes become fun to work with if we're trying to get diagrammatic um, in with our kind of drawings. Okay, so know that you could always do that. So I'm not trying to do that for this drawing. So let's say this is what I want. Now, typically sections are taken from the most interesting space or the interesting part of the building because we're actually getting to see the inside of a building. So you typically want to show the most dynamic, the most interesting, the location that you're going to understand the drawing the best. So that's kind of where we want to take these sections from. It's kind of if I take a section, you know, there's not, to be honest, there's not a whole lot going on here. But, you know, if I say that's my section, well, that's not really telling me much. It's showing me the staircase, but it's not really showing me much about the building, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull this back a little bit. And we'll go ahead and cut this section just like that. Okay. Now, remember, just like the floor plans and the elevations, we need to go to the correct view. Now, if you remember when we were talking about elevations, the way Rhino names its views, top, front, right, is based along the red axis. So if I'm standing along the red axis, right, and I'm looking to the north, that is my front side view. So that means that I need to go to my front view. However, I don't see that happening in my front view. I don't see a section cut. Remember that has to do with the fact that our clipping plane is not enabled in this view. So I'll go to my perspective view, click on the clipping plane, then come back over here to my front view and then just zoom in, zoom out. That's going to enable the view. And then I'll type in enable clipping plane. And there we have that. Right. So now we have the drawing. I can go ahead, let me go ahead and put this in the correct layer and then hide it. And then I'll do a cross window and select that. And I will then do make 2D. We'll leave that as is. We'll hit OK. And there's my section drawing. Let's go ahead and bring that right over here. We'll go into the top view. Okay. And just like the floor plan, what I'm going to do is select the whole thing, actually ungroup it first, and then put it in the thick layers. I always forget. We have to go back into the properties, tab, and change the display color, set that to layers. So then we get to see everything in the correct layers. And then let's go to our layers. Okay. The next thing is going to be to clean up the drawing, right? You know, and typically in section drawing, this is really when you gonna have to spend some time cleaning up a drawing. Because we get to see, this is where we really see like the geometry come together, or the way things were modeled, and sometimes they're not correct. So, for example, I might take this and delete that line. I really should be deleting this line. I'm gonna clean that up, delete that, delete the, oh, not that. I'm going to trim this, right? Because I want all this to be pocheted as one. Now this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because if we go back, and this is really important, make sure that you're always going back and forth between your drawings, especially if you're confused about something. So technically, this wall is that wall, and this wall is being cut through. So this wall will have a poche, and as will the floor. But because this is an orthographic drawing, it looks as though these two columns are also part of the drawing, but they're not. Well, they are part of the drawing, but they're farther back. We're not cutting through them, right? These sit farther back. So technically, we will be crocheting all through this area, but not here, right? And the same thing here. We would actually be crocheting this concrete space, so I'll delete that. Okay. Gotta delete that line, delete that line. Let's go ahead and delete all of these additional lines we don't need. Let's get rid of these. Okay, I think this is it. Oh, now with this one here, let's take a look. What are we cutting through? Yeah, so we're not cutting through anything here. So this will just end just like that. And then over here, what I'll want to do is have this little ceiling pochade. So I'm going to use my trim command and hit enter, then click and click. This whole area should be pocheted as well. So I'm going to delete this line and then come over here, do the same thing. And then over here, use my trim command, select the whole thing and just start kind of cleaning this little corner up, right? It's really about, what's going to get pocheted. And then in here, let's take a look. So yes, all of these walls here are going to get pocheted. So that means I need to delete these little lines. We could leave them, but it just means that it becomes an additional thing we have to click on when we do the poche. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Now in here, let's hit trim command. Actually, I'm gonna select all of these. Hit the space bar so then I can just go in and click, 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 and click. Okay, that should be good enough. So now I'll go ahead and select the whole object and type in hatch. Click inside regions. So I'm gonna click here. Actually, that's the whole region, right? Because we did such a great job at cleaning, that's all one region. So let's hit enter, hit OK. We want to make sure that it's set to solid. We'll hit OK. Let's come over here. And there you have it. Okay. So now what we'll do is start placing these lines into individual layers. So we'll take this. Oh, wait, we got to put this in the poche layer. We'll go ahead and take this, and this will go into my medium layer. As will kind of all of this stuff that's pretty close to the section cut. Well, oops, not the line. Go across window, select these things. Not the window that we see through the door. So I'm going to leave that just the way it is. I'm holding down the shift key, by the way, so I can do this multiple selection. And at this point, let's just put it into the medium, change object layer. And then these lines should get placed into my thin lines. So again, holding down the shift key, selecting these lines, and change object layer. There we go. These will also, all of this will get into my medium lines. This will get into my thin lines. Oh, if I could get it correctly. This column, I think, is closer to me. Yeah. So these are the two columns that we're looking at, but this one's farther while this one's closer. So I'm going to put this in with the medium lines. We'll go ahead and put all of this in medium lines. And then we'll go ahead and put the actual staircase in the thin lines. So holding down the shift key, grabbing it as much as I can, and then put in the thin lines. Oh, forgot a couple lines right there. There we go. Okay. And that's it. Now we have a clean section drawing with the walls pochade. And now at this point, we've now covered elevations, floor plans, and sections. And so you could generate any of these types of orthographic drawings without any problems. The next step is going to simply just print. How do we actually print these to a scale? All right.